The struggling Philippine town of Cebu, poverty was not just a condition, it was a way of life that shaped every breath the villagers took. The streets were narrow and dusty, lined with fragile houses made of rusted metal sheets and old wooden boards that groaned under the heat of the sun. Children ran barefoot through the alleys, their laughter thin but determined, while tired mothers carried baskets of vegetables hoping to sell enough to buy rice for the night. Among these broken streets stood an old and mysterious place known as the Cemon Cow Well. The well was ancient, surrounded by cracked gray stones covered in moss, and hidden behind a cluster of crooked coconut trees. No one knew exactly when it had been built, but the elders often said the well had watched generations of human mistakes and silent suffering. The villagers believed the well had a strange power. Some said it revealed a person's true conscience, while others whispered that it held the weight of every secret sin committed in Cebu. Among the poorest souls in that town lived a young man named Manila. His name sounded grand, like the famous capital city, but his life was anything but grand. Manila was thin, with tired eyes and hands rough from searching through garbage piles for scrap metal or leftover food. Every morning he wandered through the busy marketplace hoping to find something valuable enough to sell. Sometimes he was lucky enough to earn a few coins, but most days ended with an empty stomach and a long walk back to his fragile shack near the edge of the village. People in Cebu knew Manila as a quiet man who rarely spoke, but what they did not know was that he carried a heavy secret deep inside his heart. Years earlier, when hunger had pushed him to desperation, Manila had committed an act he could never forget. One cold night, when his stomach burned with pain from days without food, he sneaked into a small farm outside the village. There he found a cow that belonged to a struggling farmer. Driven by desperation, Manila stole a container of fresh milk meant for the farmer's children. That milk had been their only meal for the next morning. At the time Manila convinced himself he had no choice, but as the years passed the memory turned into a dark stain on his conscience, a dark sin that followed him everywhere. Every evening when Manila walked home, he passed by the silent Cemon Cow Well. Something about the well made him uneasy. The air around it always felt colder, quieter, as if the place itself was watching him. One evening, as the sun sank behind Cebu's broken rooftops and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Manila stopped beside the well. Slowly he leaned forward and looked into the deep black water. His reflection stared back, tired, poor, and filled with regret. But in that moment, Manila felt something stronger than fear. It was the strange feeling that the well did not just show his face. It showed the truth hidden in his soul. In another struggling corner of Cebu lived an aging farmer named Davao, a man whose life had been shaped by hard labor and silent endurance. His back was bent from decades of working under the scorching sun, and his hands were rough like the bark of old trees. Once he had owned a small piece of land that produced enough crops to feed his family, but time and poverty had slowly taken much of that away. Storms ruined his harvests, debt swallowed his savings, and most of his children had left the village searching for work in distant cities. Now Davao lived alone in a small wooden hut near the edge of the fields. His only true companion was a thin brown cow named Cemon, a quiet animal that had been with him for many years. To outsiders, it was just an ordinary cow, but to Davao it was more than livestock. The old farmer often said that Cemon understood human suffering better than most people did. Every morning, just as the sun rose over the coconut trees, Davao would slowly lead Cemon to the Cemon Cow Well so the animal could drink. The well had become a silent meeting place for poor villagers who carried invisible burdens in their hearts. Some came there simply to fetch water, while others came because they believed the well could somehow sense honesty and guilt. Strange stories had grown around the place over the years. People whispered that when someone stood near the well with lies in their heart, the cow would refuse to drink from the water. But when someone spoke with truth and regret, Cemon would remain calm and still, as if acknowledging the courage it took to admit a mistake. One quiet evening, as the sky turned dark blue and the wind moved gently through the coconut leaves, Manila slowly approached the well again. His face looked heavier than usual, weighed down by years of guilt he had never shared with anyone. Davao was already there, sitting on a worn wooden stool while Cemon stood nearby chewing grass peacefully. When Manila arrived, he hesitated for a moment, staring into the dark water as if searching for the courage to speak. Finally, his voice broke the silence. "I did something wrong a long time ago," Manila confessed quietly, his words trembling like fragile glass. He told the old farmer about the night he stole the milk, about the hunger that drove him to that desperate choice, and about the shame that had followed him every single day since. Davao listened carefully without interrupting. His old eyes showed neither anger nor judgment, only deep understanding. When Manila finished speaking, the air around them felt strangely calm. At that exact moment, Cemon stepped closer to the well and slowly lowered its head to drink from the dark water. The cow did not step back or hesitate. Instead, it drank peacefully, its reflection steady on the surface of the well. For the villagers who believed in the strange wisdom of the cow, that simple reaction meant something powerful. Davao looked at Manila and spoke in a steady, strong voice. "Son, poverty can push a man into darkness," he said, "but only truth can pull him back into the light." For the first time in years, Manila felt a small piece of the heavy guilt inside his chest begin to lift. In that quiet moment beside the Cemon Cow Well, with the old farmer watching and the cow drinking calmly, Manila felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. As time passed, the quiet moment beside the Cemon Cow Well began to change more than just Manila's heart. Word slowly spread beyond Cebu to nearby villages like Quezon, Zamboanga, and even the cool mountain town of Baguio. The story people shared was simple but powerful. A poor man named Manila had finally confessed the dark sin that had been haunting him for years, and the silent cow Cemon had calmly accepted his honesty. For many struggling villagers, the story felt deeply personal. Poverty was common across those communities, and with poverty often came mistakes, regrets, and painful decisions made in moments of desperation. People began to realize that Manila's story was not just about one man stealing milk long ago, it was about the heavy burden many poor people carried in silence. Soon the well that once frightened villagers started to become a place of reflection. Every morning, small groups of people quietly gathered around the cracked stones of the Cemon Cow Well. Some came with buckets for water, but many came simply to stand beside the well and think about their own lives. Farmers who had cheated neighbors during hard times, workers who had lied to protect their pride, and parents who regretted harsh decisions all found themselves drawn to the silent place. The well had become a symbol of truth. And always nearby stood the thin brown cow Cemon, calmly watching with dark, steady eyes as if it somehow understood the emotion surrounding it. Manila himself changed in ways that surprised the entire village. Instead of avoiding people out of shame, he began working harder than ever. He helped the old farmer Davao repair broken fences, clean the small fields, and take care of the cow that had unknowingly become part of his redemption. Though he was still poor, his spirit looked stronger. The tired man who once walked through the marketplace with his head down now greeted others with quiet respect. People noticed that when Manila passed the well now, he no longer avoided looking into the water. Instead, he stood tall, knowing that the truth had already faced him there. The cow's behavior continued to fascinate the villagers. Sometimes when people argued loudly near the well or tried to hide their guilt behind proud words, Cemon would slowly step away from the water as if rejecting the tension. But when someone spoke honestly about their mistakes, the cow often remained still and peaceful, lowering its head to drink quietly. Whether it was coincidence or something deeper, the villagers saw meaning in these moments. In their eyes, the cow had become a silent judge, not cruel or punishing, but patient and calm. Over time, the people of Cebu began to understand a powerful truth expressed in strong, plain words: a dark sin may live in every human heart, but honesty has the power to weaken its shadow. The villagers were still poor, their homes still fragile, and their daily struggles far from over. But something had changed inside their community. The Cemon Cow Well was no longer just an old stone hole in the ground. It had become a quiet place where courage was measured not by wealth or strength, but by the willingness to face one's own truth. And every morning, when the sun rose over the coconut trees and the cow seamen stepped forward to drink from the deep water, the villagers watched in respectful silence. In that simple moment, they were reminded that even in a life filled with hardship, truth, humility, and forgiveness can wash away the weight of the darkest sins.